Hey everyone, tonight we're diving into the story of the bell at Elderbridge Abbey. But before you settle in, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe only if you truly enjoy this kind of content. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is for you, so drop that in the comments. It's always amazing seeing people from all over the world tuning in. Now, dim the lights. Maybe switch on a fan for that cozy background hum, and let's drift into tonight's story together. Welcome, gentle traveler. Let your eyes grow heavy, and let your breath settle like dew on a quiet morning. We are going back to the days when the world was slower, and every village had a story hidden beneath the moss-covered stones. Far to the north, where the hills rise like folded blankets beneath the stars, there lies a path worn smooth by the passing of pilgrims, wool traders, and whisper-footed monks. This road, lined with wild mallow and soft-stemmed thistle, leads to Elderbridge Abbey, a place few remember, and even fewer ever truly saw. The air is thick with the scent of sage and baked earth. A faint warmth clings to the stones, though twilight is falling. A soft breeze carries the faintest tinkle, the sound of a distant bell. Not a church bell, not quite. Like a spoon brushing porcelain in a dream, there walks a figure. This one is thinner, gentler. The road curves gently, as if unsure of where it wants to go. And beside that curve, only a lull of notes passed down from her grandmother's grandmother. A tune once sung to butter that wouldn't churn, to goats that wouldn't sleep, to babies with moon-touched dreams. A girl of perhaps 17 winters, wrapped in a cloak of soft gray wool. Her name is Anwen, and she is humming. An apprentice in the order of Saint Galien. It's not a song with words. Her boots crunch lightly on dry leaves. In her hand, she carries a bundle wrapped in linen, tied with blue thread. Inside, a round of sweet cheese, half a loaf of black rye bread, and a folded letter sealed with beeswax. The seal bears a crescent moon and a sprig of lavender, the mark of Elderbridge Abbey. You see, Anwen is not just a traveler. She is to become an herb bearer, a rare honor, though the village midwife had simply smiled and whispered, "It's because the plants love you back." Now let us slow the breath again. In through the nose, softly, and out through the mouth, like wind slipping through a keyhole. Ahead, the mallow fields open like a sea of purple blush. These blossoms, round as coins and light as silk, sway with the rhythm of the earth's heartbeat. In medieval times, mallow was more than a flower. It was a healer. Used to soothe burns and quiet coughs, its leaves were once pressed into wounds by battlefield monks. Its roots steeped for the weary and the wounded. Even the Romans, it is said, carried mallow in their satchels. And now, in this forgotten patch of England, it blooms just for her. A bee hums past her ear. Anwen does not flinch. She only nods, as if greeting an old friend. The sun dips lower, brushing gold across her brow. Ahead, where the fields thin, stands a crumbling milepost, carved with a single word, sanctum. She reaches out and brushes her fingers over the moss, feeling the grooves of the letters, smooth with time, soft with age. She closes her eyes for just a moment and listens. Wind, bell, and that slow, deep silence that only the truly old places seem to know. They say Elderbridge Abbey was built atop an ancient grove, a place where druids once whispered to trees that bled red sap, a place where the stars were watched through polished bowls of black stone. But that was long before the stones of the chapel were laid, one upon another, before the bell was cast, and before St. Gallienne first dreamed beneath the elder tree. The sun kisses the horizon now, and as Anwen passes through the gate of intertwined willow, she feels the hush fall. It's not silence exactly, but a change in the world's breathing. Even the birds grow quiet. Elderbridge Abbey is not large. It is a half-circle of honey-colored stone wrapped around a cloister garden, its arches overgrown with wild thyme and climbing roses. Its bell tower stands off-center, leaning slightly like a nodding old man, and at its base, a small oak door carved with 7 spirals, one for each herb of St. Gallienne. Anwen steps through, and the door creaks with the softest sigh, as if it too remembers the girl's grandmother, and her grandmother before that. Inside, the air smells of beeswax, dried lavender, and ink. Candles flicker in sconces made of antler and iron. A cat blinks from the windowsill and stretches, unbothered. This is a place where time folds softly in on itself, like parchment or petals in the rain. She is greeted not with fanfare, but with tea. Warm, calming tea, poured by Sister Mirwen, who wears a habit the color of dusted sage. Chamomile, and a bit of valerian, she says softly, to ease the journey from one life into the next. No one hurries here. No voices rise above a murmur. And as Anwen sips, she feels her eyelids grow heavy, not from sleep, but from peace. Later, as twilight deepens into the velvet blue of night, Sister Mirwen leads Anwen to the herbarium. The room is circular, its walls lined with wooden drawers, each one labeled in tiny, curling script. Arnica, mugwort, wild bergamot, vervain. A table in the center holds tools made of bone and brass, mortar worn smooth, scales balanced by whisper-light stones. And above all this, the ceiling painted in deep indigo, flecked with golden stars. St. Gallienne believed every herb sang, Mirwen whispers. If you listened closely, even the leaves had dreams. That night, Anwen sleeps in a chamber warmed by a soapstone stove. Her bed is straw-stuffed linen beneath a patchwork quilt stitched with ivy and moons. And just as she begins to drift, just as the last candle sighs out its golden breath, the bell tolls, not loud, not harsh, but soft like a lullaby made of iron. It rings only once, and somewhere, far off, a door is opening. The morning arrives as a whisper. There is no rooster's cry, no clatter of pans or bustling voices. Only the hush of light filtering through linen curtains, and the soft coo of a dove nesting in the eaves. Anwen blinks slowly, not quite waking. She is warm beneath her quilt. The air smells faintly of rosemary and sun-warmed wood. She listens, and for a long moment, to the silence, to the stillness. Old breath of the abbey itself. The bell does not ring. To the low, outside, not yet. It tolls not for time. Here, but for turning. Turning of seasons. Turning of souls. Turning of the stars. Feet brushing the cool stone floor. She rises quietly. A small basin of water waits fresh and scented with crushed mint leaves. There is a towel woven of flax, softer than she expects, and beside it, a simple robe the color of oat milk. She notices a tiny thread sewn into the robe's hem. She feels very, very small. As she dresses, blue and silver, a star and a sprig. the mark of the herb bearers, fingertips lingering over the stitched sigil. She breathes in slowly, and for a moment, and very, very old, nor overly tamed. She says gently, "To meet the garden, as though she has always been here, breakfast is quiet. A round of barley bread with plum preserve, and a small cup of warm goat's milk, pruning shears, and a narrow copper trowel, taken in the cloister garden beneath a vine-wrapped archway. A small well of polished black stone. A robin lands nearby, tilting its head as if in greeting, holding a small basket. Sister Mirawen appears in silence. Inside, gloves, a single elder tree. It spirals. It is time, and the leaves tremble like breathing pages. The abbey garden is not grand. It is not symmetrical, almost silvery. Foxglove, sage, and rue. Instead, a living labyrinth of time, paths of crushed seashell and bark curl between flower beds shaped like crescent moons. In the center, says Sister Mirwen, nodding toward the outer circle of the garden, and above it, its bark is pale, its leaves a deep green laced with purple veins. Anwin pauses beneath its branches. The wind stirs. There, mugwort, lavender, sweet woodruff. You'll begin by listening. Listening? Anwin asks softly. To the way they bend, how they reach toward the sun, how they lean away from cold stone. The plants speak, not with words, but in growth. Anwin kneels in the soft soil. The scent of crushed green fills her lungs. And with each breath, she feels the rest of the world fall away. She spends the day in the spiral garden, weeding, snipping dead blooms, brushing aphids from tender stems with a rabbit hairbrush, and always listening. She learns that lavender wilts when scolded, that sweet woodruff curls inward when sung to, and that mugwort, ancient herb of dreams, hums softly in the heat. In medieval herbcraft, it was believed mugwort opened the gates of sleep. Knights tucked it in their boots to ward off fatigue. Midwives used it in childbirth. And some said the Virgin Mary herself placed mugwort beneath her cloak while fleeing to Egypt. Anwin finds a sprig in bloom, and without thinking, tucks it into her braid. That evening, Sister Mirwen leads her into the library. Stone walls, candlelight, and row after row of vellum-bound tomes. The Book of Roots, she says, laying a large volume on the table. The cover is stained with ink and time oil. Its pages crackle softly. Inside, sketches of herbs drawn with delicate charcoal, annotated in looping Latin. Anwin cannot read most of it, but she traces the pictures with reverent fingers. Each plant alive on the page, dandelion, coltsfoot, heartsease, and there, beneath an inked leaf of vervain, a line written in English. The dreamer must water the roots with silence. She reads it aloud, barely a whisper, and in the silence that follows, the bell tolls once more, soft, low, like a heartbeat in stone. Sister Mirwen says nothing, only closes the book and folds her hands. That bell, Anwin asks quietly, why does it only ring once? The sister looks toward the arched window, moonlight silvering her face. It is not rung, she says. It rings when it must. Anwin waits, but no more is said. Only the whisper of wind through ivy, and the slow extinguishing of candle after candle. That night, Anwin dreams. She is standing in the garden, beneath the elder tree. But the stars above a different brighter, closer, arranged in a spiral that mirrors the garden paths. The herbs around her are humming, not one at a time, but together. A low melodic thrum like bees and breathing. And from the well in the center, a single note rises, clear, pure, bell-like. She reaches out toward the well and wakes. Morning comes with rain, a soft, silvery drizzle that beads on leaves and patters gently on stone. Anwen wraps herself in her cloak and steps outside. The world is washed clean. She watches as drops gather on lavender stalks, pooling, then falling, one by one. And somewhere in the quiet distance, she hears a low murmur of chanting, not Latin, not prayer, a song carried by the wind. Later, she asks Sister Merwin about the song. The woman smiles softly, brushing flour from her hands. Each herb has a note, she says. Together, they form the Abbey's song. Like a choir? Anwen asks. No, the sister says, like a memory. She gestures toward a small wooden box on the windowsill. Inside, a dozen tiny glass vials, each stoppered with wax. They hold tinctures, she says, but also sound. If you listen closely, you'll hear what the herbs remember. Anwen lifts one gently labeled calendula. She holds it near her ear, and for just a moment, she hears it, a hum, faint, golden, like sunshine in a bottle. The rest of the day passes in a kind of gentle blur. Anwen dries chamomile blossoms on linen racks. She grinds angelica root into powder. She writes her name slowly, carefully into the apprentice ledger beside a pressed violet. The world narrows to scent and sound, to quiet footsteps and curling steam, to soft-spoken lessons and hours marked not by clocks, but by shadows shifting on sun-warmed stone. And when dusk falls, the bell tolls. Once, always once. And this time, Anwen does not ask. She only closes her eyes and listens. The days at Elderbridge pass like ripples across still water. There are no clocks, no bells for mass or market. Only the sun, the shadows, the scent of earth, and the quiet ticking of herb leaves curling inward at night. Time here is circular. Anwen learns to rise with the doves, to walk barefoot through the morning dew, to greet the garden with a nod, and a breath as though it were a person gently waking. Each morning, she is given a task, to soak linden bark in rainwater, to polish the stone bowls with beeswax and chamomile, to press rose petals between pages of the herbal ledger. She does not question. She only listens. And each dusk, without fail, the bell tolls. Once, and only once. It is on the 7th day that the abbess calls for her. Abbess Hilwyn is older than the floorstones and quieter than the candles. Her habit is a darker green, embroidered at the cuffs with stars made of tiny silver beads. Her eyes are pale mist-colored, but they see everything. Anwen follows her through a narrow passage behind the apothecary. The walls are rough here original stone, veined with old root trails. At the end is a door, bound in iron and elderwood. The abbess places her hand flat upon it, and waits. There is no key, no lock, but slowly the door opens. Inside is a round room with no windows. Only one small fire glows in a low hearth. The air is heavy with herbs. Not fresh ones, but dried, crumbling, old, as if the room remembers every tincture ever brewed inside it. On a pedestal in the center rests a lantern. made of dark brass, shaped like an orb, with stained glass slats between curling vines of metal. It does not glow. It does not flicker. But it hums, low, so low that it might be imagined. "This," says the abbess, "is Galene's lantern." Anwen approaches slowly. The air near it smells strange, like juniper, like parchment, like something older than either. "She made it," Helwyn continues, "when the bell first rang." Anwen blinks. "She made this after the bell?" "No, child. Because of it." The abbess rests a hand on the lantern, as if calming a sleeping animal. She was not a saint when she arrived. She was only a healer, a woman with a talent for silence. She believed that some herbs only bloomed in stillness, that wounds closed faster if you hummed softly to the skin. Anwen doesn't speak. She only watches. The abbess's voice drifts on. One night, while tending a child with fever, Galen heard the bell. It rang once, softly. No one else heard it. But she followed it anyway, through the garden, beneath the elder tree, and into the dark. The lantern was her gift to the abbey, not as a light, but as a memory keeper. You see, in medieval lore, some believed brass could hold more than heat. It could hold sound. Sound and spirit and sorrow. Galien collected lullabies from mothers, whisper prayers from the sick, final breaths from the dying, and she placed them inside this lantern, not with magic, but with care. Now, the abbess says, it holds the weight of 100 years of whispers, and only one voice can open it again. Yours, perhaps, Helwyn says, her eyes never leaving the flame. But not yet. That evening, Anwen sits by the fountain in the cloister. The water is still. The air smells faintly of lemon balm. She places a hand on her chest, feels her own heart, then listens. Not for the bell, but for the space it rings into. That perfect stillness that comes after sound. She imagines Galien in the same spot, barefoot, herbs in her apron, a lantern in her hand, and a sound no one else heard guiding her beneath the tree. And when the bell tolls soft, low, sure, Anwen does not startle. She simply closes her eyes and listens. In the days that follow, Anwen begins her lessons in the silent garden. It is not a true garden, but a space just beyond the apothecary, covered in glass, bathed in filtered light. Here, the abbey keeps its most delicate herbs, those that must not be spoken to, those that require total quiet to grow. Valerian, henbane, monk's hood, each planted in clay bowls, each attended in silence. Even the soil is sifted by hand, no metal, no tools, no shoes. Anwen kneels in the powdery earth and feels the stillness seep into her skin. She thinks of medieval physic gardens, how every abbey once kept them, plots shaped like crosses, filled with healing and poison alike, an entire language written in petals and root. One afternoon, as she trims dead leaves from a cluster of creeping nightshade, she sees something buried near the stem. A sliver of silver, not metal, not glass. Carefully, she brushes away the soil. It is a shard of mirror, smooth on one side, clouded with age on the other. She lifts it, and for a flickering moment, she sees herself but older, wearing Galene's crescent, holding the lantern, standing beneath a night sky, painted with spiral stars. Then the image fades, and all that remains is her reflection, young, puzzled, speckled with dust. That night, she cannot sleep. She rises from her bed and slips barefoot into the hall. The abbey is still. Candles gutter in their sconces. A distant owl hoots once, and then, again, the bell tolls. But not once, twice. Low, then lower. She has never heard it ring twice before. She follows it, past the garden, past the herbarium, to the elder tree. The wind is soft. The branches sway, and beneath them, someone stands. A girl, her back turned, cloaked in gray, hair braided with mugwort. Enwin steps forward, and the girl turns. It is her, and not her. Older, wiser, tired, she lifts a finger to her lips, and in a voice barely above breath says, "Listen." Enwin wakes with her hand pressed to her chest. Her heart is calm, but heavy like a bell that has just stopped ringing. The dream lingers. The elder tree. The girl who is also herself. And that single word? Listen. But to what? The world this morning is wrapped in mist. Soft, pale mist that drapes over the garden, curls between cloister stones, and muffles every sound into silence. Enwin dresses slowly, wraps her braid with blue thread, slips the shard of mirror into her apron pocket, though she's told no one she found it. Today, the abbey feels different, as if it's watching, or perhaps waiting. Her task this morning is to gather angelica root. It grows beyond the walls, where the forest path curves toward a stream. Sister Merwen gives her a small satchel, a trowel, and a gentle warning. Angelica is bold. It grows near water, but it listens best to those who walk softly. Enwin nods. She steps beyond the willow gate, out into the hush of the forest edge. Here, birds sing not in chorus, but in question. The leaves overhead filter the light like stained glass. And there, where a patch of moss leads down toward the stream, she sees it, Angelica, tall, with green stalks and domed white blooms like lace, held up to the sky. She kneels in the soft loam, brushes back the foliage with care, and begins to dig. Her fingers find the root, thick, sweet-smelling, warm from the earth. But as she lifts it, something strange happens. The air around her stills, not just the breeze, but everything. No bird calls, no water flows. Even the insects seem to pause. She turns the root in her hands and hears a whisper. Not a voice, not words, just sound, like parchment turning, or breath against a pillow. She presses the root to her ear, and the whisper becomes clearer. It is singing a lullaby, soft and ancient, the kind sung to cradle a fevered child in the darkest hour of night. Enwin does not understand the words, but she knows them, somewhere deep in her bones. And in that moment, she remembers. Angelica was once called the root of the Holy Ghost, used to ward off plague, to bless bread, to cast out sorrow. In medieval times, people tied its leaves above their doors during storms, hung roots over infants' cradles. They believed the plant chose who could gather it. Perhaps it has chosen her. She returns to the abbey in silence, hands the root to Sister Merwen, who pauses, then nods. "You heard it," she says quietly. Enwin doesn't reply. She only glances at the mirror shard in her pocket. That night, she places it beneath her pillow and dreams again. She walks through the herbarium, but the plants have grown wild tall, overgrown, blooming at night. The ceiling is gone. The stars above are spinning. The bell tolls not once, but many times each one softer than the last. And in the center of the garden stands the lantern, glowing now, not with fire, but with memories. Faces drift through its glass panes. A crying child, a monk with ink-stained hands, a woman kneeling in a field of heather, whispering something to the sky. Anwen reaches for the lantern, but just before her fingers touch the brass, a voice behind her says, "Not yet." She turns and sees Galien, Saint Galien, not in robes, but in a simple wool dress, hair braided with ivy, eyes as deep as night. And Galien says very softly, "The bell does not ring for time. It rings for turning. And you, child, are beginning to turn." Anwen wakes before dawn. The stars still glimmer, but the abbey is already stirring. Sister Merwen knocks at her door, holding a lantern and a scroll. The abbess requests your presence at the well. Not the kitchen well, not the one near the herbs, but the well. The black stone well beneath the elder tree. She follows the winding path. The mist is lifting now, thin as breath, and the bell tower rises like a quiet sentinel. The abbess stands beside the well, one hand resting on the worn stone lip. Anwen kneels, as is custom, but the abbess shakes her head gently. "No titles here," she says, "only names." She passes Anwen the scroll and a silver stylus. The scroll is blank. "Write what you've heard," the abbess says softly. Anwen frowns. I don't know what to write." "You will." And so she sits beside the well and waits. Hours pass. The sun rises behind thin clouds. Birds chirp, bees drift past, and slowly, words come, not invented, not guessed, but remembered. She writes of the bell, of Galien, of the Angelica root that sang, of the mirror and the spiral stars. The stylus glides across the parchment like a needle through silk. Her hand does not tremble, and when the last word is written, the bell tolls once, and the scroll curls ever so slightly, as if in a sigh. The abbess steps forward, takes the scroll, reads nothing, only tucks it into her robe. "Tomorrow," she says, "you will walk the dreaming path." Anwen tilts her head. "You will understand," Helwyn says, "but only if you sleep deeply." That night, she drinks a tea brewed with valerian, poppy seed, and sweetened fennel. Sister Merwen watches her with a strange, kind sadness. "Once you walk the dreaming path," she says, "you never see the waking world quite the same." Anwen nods and drinks. As she lies in bed, the air grows thick with scent. Warm petals, wet moss, a touch of smoke, and the world folds inward. She is walking, barefoot, through the abbey, but not. The stones beneath her feet are glowing. The arches overhead are ivy and light. The lantern floats before her, swaying gently, like it's leading her forward. She follows, down the cloister, past the bell tower, into the garden. But the herbs are taller than trees now, and they speak not in words, but in dreams, where a girl leaves behind a pouch of herbs for the one who comes after. Each one she passes shows her a vision, turns, cracked, and opens, as though time itself is resting. Lavender, a battlefield stilled by night, where nurses tend the wounded with trembling hands, and whispering. Anwen kneels beside it, presses her hand to the crack. Chamomile, a mother rocking a feverish child in a hut of wattle and daub. Rue, a witch's trial. Each vision is soft, and full of sleep, saying, "I remember you." And at the center of the garden, the lantern stops. Inside is a pool of starlight, and at its bottom, a bell, old, and hears her own voice. Morning never fully arrives. The light is gray, folded in fog. The sky holds its breath. Even the birds keep their songs tucked beneath their wings. Anwen stirs slowly, still wrapped in sleep, though her eyes are open. The taste of valerian lingers on her tongue bittersweet, like memory left too long in the sun. She rises, one movement at a time. Her limbs feel heavy, as though dipped in wax. Yet she is not tired, only changed. Her fingertips remember stars. Her heart remembers bells. And in her pocket, the mirror shard is warm. The abbey is nearly silent. Only a few sisters pass through the cloister nodding, not speaking. The air smells of rosemary and candle soot. At the gate to the herbarium, Sister Mirwen waits. She holds a bundle, a simple white robe and a strip of blue cloth. "For your eyes," she says. "You will wear the robe, and you will walk blind." Anwen doesn't question. She only nods. There is a peace in surrender, a softness in trusting the path ahead, even when it is not seen. Moments later, barefoot and blindfolded, she is led by a hand on her shoulder. Not firm, not pulling, just guiding. The stone beneath her feet is cool, left, then right, but smooth, familiar. Each step echoes gently, then straight. They pass under arches, around curves, down shallow steps. The air deepens, grows cooler, more fragrant. And then her guide stops. The blindfold is removed. She stands in a round chamber beneath the abbey. Symbols of plants, moons, and old prayers, lit by one great circular window, carved from emerald glass. The walls are carved with vines and stars. There are no books here, no ink, only silence. And at the center, the lantern. It rests atop a stone pedestal. Its panels now glow faintly, not with flame, but with a kind of remembered light. Shifting colors, like a sunrise seen through fog. Anwen steps forward. No one tells her what to do. There are no words, only the hush of breath. A tone chimes not from the lantern, but from beneath the floor, and the weight of 100 unseen eyes. She places the mirror shard gently into the small slot in the lantern's base. It clicks, a single note, clear, crystalline, like the first drop of rain on stone. The abbess speaks at last, from the edge of the room. The lantern opens. Its panels unfold like petals slowly, deliberately. Inside, a spiral staircase descends into golden mist. No walls, no railing, only light. Few walk this path, child. It is not a place for questions, only for listening. Anwen looks once into the eyes of the woman who has watched over her since the moment she arrived, then steps forward and begins to descend. Each step feels like walking through time. The light grows warmer, thicker, like honey poured over memory. She hears voices, soft, layered, familiar and strange. Some are crying, some are laughing, some are whispering in languages long since forgotten. Each voice is cradled in the mist, floating, free, and woven between them all. A bell, always that single note, ringing between words like punctuation in a prayer. When she reaches the bottom, there is no floor, only earth, soft, moss-covered earth. She steps barefoot into a circular glade, open to the sky. But the sky is not the one she knows. It is spiraled. The stars above curve in slow, perfect rings. And at the center of them all, the elder tree grows, wider than 10 men could embrace. Leaves of silver and plum, roots like the arms of sleeping giants. And at its base, Alien waits. She is not glowing. She does not float. She does not wear a crown. She wears only a soft robe and a necklace of dried herbs. Her hands are stained with soil, and her smile is the same smile Anwen saw in her dream. "Welcome," she says softly. "Come sit." They sit together beneath the tree, and the world quiets. Galien does not speak immediately. She pulls something from her pocket, a folded cloth pouch. Inside, 7 tiny bells, each made of different metal, each shaped like a different flower. One for each path of healing, she says. Not cures, but comforts. She holds out the first lavender bell and rings it once. A sound like silk sliding over glass. The memory it evokes is instant. A child, long ago, sobbing in fever. A cool cloth on her head. The scent of crushed lavender beneath her pillow. A lullaby sung in half words. Anwen blinks. Tears slip down her cheeks, unbidden. Galien hands her the second chamomile bell. Another tone. Another memory. An old woman with trembling hands pouring tea in a hut beside the sea. The fire crackles. Outside, waves kiss the shore. Inside, the warmth of sleep creeping in like a friendly shadow. Bell by bell, the memories come. Some are hers. Some are not, but all feel known. Because the healing we give and the healing we receive are never truly separate. When the final bell, the Angelica bell, is rung, the spiral stars above her begin to turn. Faster, then slower, then still. And in the hush that follows, the great elder tree leans ever so slightly forward, its roots part, revealing a hollow. Inside, a simple book, bound in lavender leather. The pages are blank. But Galien is gone, unmarked. Galien places it in Anwen's hands. "This is yours," she says. Not to read, but to remember into. Anwen opens it. Softly, she closes it again, then turns back to speak. When she returns up the spiral, out of the lantern, the chamber is still. But something has changed. The stone beneath her feet feels warmer. Only enough for those listening closely. The lantern's light no longer flickers. And in her arms, the book hums faintly with breath. The abbess stands nearby. "You are now its keeper," she says. "Of what?" Anwen whispers. "Of what must never be spoken, only remembered and carried." That night, the bell does not toll. Instead, it sings, not loudly, not long, enough for those who now carry the memory of sound. Inside their silence, the dawn is pale gold, gentler than before. No bells toll, no footsteps echo. The abbey seems to sleep, even as the sun begins to spill softly over the cloisters. Without question, she knows what this day is. Anwen rises without command. There is no robe waiting, only her own gray cloak, folded neatly at the foot of her bed, and her boots brushed clean. She dresses slowly, not silent, no spoken word, only the plants, the soil, and the book. Still blank, but listening. Leaves quiver without breeze, carefully, as if this too is a kind of prayer. And in the breath, something shifts. She is no longer Anwen the apprentice, Elderflower. Each chime softens the air, thins it, opens it. Outside, the garden is quiet. Petals glisten with dew, and somewhere, just beneath hearing, a low hum trembles beneath the earth. At the center of the garden stands a small stone bowl. She walks the spiral path, passing each herb she has tended, each bloom she has whispered to. Lavender, it writes itself. Anwin of the mallow path. Chamomile. Rue, still blank. Fennel. Mugwort. Each scent that now lives beneath her skin. There is no sister to guide her, and breathes. No chant, still pulsing. Something rooted, something ready. It was once a font, long before Elderbridge was an abbey. Now it holds only water drawn from the well beneath the elder tree. She kneels beside it, washes her hands, weights her brow, just breathes, each flower-shaped, each waiting. She lays them in a circle around the font. She is something older, and above her, the stars are visible again. From beneath her cloak, she draws the pouch of bells Galien once held. 7, and one by one, she rings them. Angelica. By the final bell, the garden has changed. The spirals are no longer paths. They are constellations, even by daylight. A soft wind stirs the pages of her book. But when she touches the first page, ink blooms. Not from a quill, not from her hand, from the memory of what she has walked. Bearer of root and silence, heard the bell and did not flee. She does not cry. She does not smile. She only bows her head. When she returns to the cloister, the sisters are waiting. Not in rows, not in lines. They sit beneath arches and beside ivy-covered pillars, hands resting in their laps, all in welcome. The abbess approaches, all in silence, no staff, gently curled, no scroll, no crown. Dreaming of mugwort, the memory of Angelica, she carries nothing, each one alive. Only a single bloom of mallow soft purple, and whispers, for the first and only time that day, and breathes. She is ready now. The song of mugwort and the voice of a bell that rings only once. She places it in Anwin's braid. Anwin returns to the chamber of the lantern and listens. From deep below, she hears it again, each one part of the bell. Warmth of chamomile, the ache of rue, the clarity of carrying a bundle of herbs. Singing a tune with no words. Fennel, turn. And so she does. In that stillness, she finds the hum of lavender not away. The abbey breathes, not back. She turns within. And there, the door opens at her touch, and the lantern waits. She does not open it. Soft, slower than time, older than language, vivid to keep the silence, and the watching silence of elderflower. Each one a note. That night, no one follows. It is someone after her. The next one. The next bearer. The pedestal glows faintly. She only sits beside it. The ringing. And from the lantern's glass panels, a single image flickers a new girl, walking the spiral garden. It is not Anwin, because the bell does not ring for endings, only for turnings. Anwin closes the book, extinguishes the lantern's glow, to carry the memory, to teach the hum of lavender outside the tower. The stars spiral slowly, the mallow sways in sleep, and the abbey. The air is warmer now. Late spring wraps the abbey in tender green ivy, creeping higher, bees dozing in blossoms, sunlight puddling quietly on stone. Everything breathes slower. as if the whole world has entered a deeper sleep. Anwen walks the spiral garden with bare feet and light steps, not to tend, not to gather, only to know. Each plant she passes greets her. The lavender hums softly. The angelica leans toward her shadow, and the elder tree is still, but listening, always listening. She now carries the herb-bearer's pouch wherever she goes. It rests at her side, quiet as breath, filled with things that are not just herbs. A single bell, a folded scrap of night sky, a vial of fennel-scented air, and the blank book, which is no longer blank. Each evening, new words appear, not just hers, but those of every bearer before her. Soft entries, whispers of healing, fragments of dreams. None are signed, because the memory belongs to no one and to everyone. One morning, the abbess appears in the garden. She is slower now, palest at the edges, like candlelight nearing its final flicker. She offers Anwen a pouch of seeds, small, dark, crescent-shaped. "Plant these when the next one comes," she says. "They bloom only when names are forgotten." Anwen nods. She understands. In Elderbridge, names are not kept, only memories. That afternoon, a soft knock comes to the abbey's gate. A girl stands there, no older than Anwen was once, hair braided with honeysuckle, hands covered in river clay, eyes full of questions she does not yet know how to ask. She says only this: "I heard a bell, but no one else did." The abbess smiles faintly and calls for Anwen. They walk the cloisters together. Anwen leads her gently through the spiral garden, letting her fingertips brush the leaves. She does not explain. Not yet. Instead, she guides the girl to the drawing room, hands her a bundle of sage to hang, a towel to fold, a cup of dandelion tea to sip slowly. The girl says nothing, but watches and listens, and breathes in the quiet as if it were air she never knew she needed. At dusk, Anwen gives her a simple linen robe and walks with her to the cloister. They sit beneath the ivy archway. The light fades, the air cools, and then the bell tolls once, and the girl's eyes close, only for a moment. But in that moment, everything changes. The days become loops again, not circles exactly, but spirals winding inward. Anwen teaches without teaching. She shows her how to listen to mugwort, how to press time between fingers and smell not the leaf, but the story beneath it. She places the angelica bell in her paw and watches as the girl brings it to her ear, just once, just enough. One evening, as stars scatter faintly over the garden, the girl asks, "Does the bell ever stop ringing?" Anwen smiles. "It never truly rings," she says. "It only reminds." "Of what?" Anwen pauses, lets the wind pass, lets the petals of a mallow bloom fall into the grass, that the healing is not ours. We only remember it into being. Later that night, Anwen returns alone to the lantern room. The walls glow faintly. The glass panels shift with memory. She places her book, now half filled, on the pedestal beside it, not to close, but to offer. She does not need to speak. The lantern knows. It folds open, and within, the spiral lights rise, golden, weightless, and there, held in the glow, her own memory. The first root she pulled from the stream bank, the first whisper she heard, the first time she dreamed beneath the elder tree, all suspended like dust in sunlight. And then, gently, They drift away, into the lantern, carried, held, not hers now. Not anymore. She steps back, extinguishes the lantern, and bows once to the silence. The next day, the girl finds a folded cloth at the foot of her bed. Inside, a robe, a small pouch of bells, and a single pressed violet. No note, but she understands. And Anwen? She walks the garden once more, not as apprentice, not even as bearer, but as part of the soil, part of the hush between herbs, the breath between bell rings. She will remain here, not forever, just as long as the memory asks her to. And when the time comes, she too will leave no name. And a quiet voice that says to the next girl, listen, only a bloom, a hum. There are no more pages now. The book rests closed, its cover warm from many hands. The ink within it never dries fully. It shimmers faintly in moonlight and hums, ever so softly, when held in silence. Anwen no longer walks the path. She is the path. When the garden rustles in early wind, that is her cloak brushing the herbs. When the water in the well darkens before rain, that is her gaze, remembering something it does not need to explain. When a new girl arrives, mud on her boots, wonder in her chest, Anwen is there, in the breath between their first footsteps, watching, not with eyes, but with presence. Sometimes the bell does not ring for days. Sometimes it tolls twice in one evening, and no one knows why. But no one asks. No one fears. For those who live in Elderbridge know, the bell does not signal danger. It signals depth, a turning, a soft unfolding of something already begun. There is a tree at the heart of the abbey. You know it well by now. The elder tree, wide-rooted, spiral-hearted. Its leaves shift colors when no one watches. Silver when it rains. Plum when it dreams. And a pale green so soft it seems to hum when touched by sleeping hands. It no longer bears fruit. Not the kind you eat, anyway. But under its branches, people rest. Not to nap, not even to sleep, but to remember something, anything and everything. Sister Mirwen tends to the roots now. Her hands are slower, but kinder. She no longer harvests plants. She only listens to them. Once she said to a younger novice, some herbs don't grow for healing. They grow to teach the healing already inside us. And the girl nodded, not quite understanding, but knowing it mattered. Far beneath the tree, in the chamber where the lantern rests, time no longer moves like it once did. You may sit beside the glass panels for hours, or days, and feel no older when you rise. For the lantern remembers for you. The echo of your breath, it keeps the shape of your silence. The soft tones of every bell you did not ring. There is peace in knowing. You are not required to hold all memory, only to offer it, and then to let it go. At night, in the cloister, the wind sometimes carries voices. Not full words, only the sounds of kindness, of comfort, of unfinished lullabies sung centuries ago. They curl into the arches like sleeping cats. They slip into stone cracks and nest in the pages of books left open too long. No one tries to catch them. No one writes them down. They are not meant to be kept, only to be felt. And when it rains, oh, when it rains, the whole abbey sighs. The water trickles down mossy walls, gathers at the roots of fennel, pools beneath the bell tower where a tiny fern now grows. That fern was not planted. It simply arrived. and no one dares disturb it, because even the smallest green thing may carry a whisper. Even the smallest root may ring with memory. You ask now, perhaps without speaking, what became of Anwen? She is here. She is everywhere. Not as ghost, not as saint, not even as legend, but as pattern. The way the lavender leans after rain, that's her. The way the wind pauses before the bell tolls, that's her too. The way every new girl finds the herb garden and feels, without knowing why, that she has been here before, that is Anwen. That is memory. That is the bell's true sound. The final toll never arrives, because it is not final. It is just a softer one, a quieter one. The bell fades into the breath between stories, into the hush between words, into you. Yes, you, the one listening, still here, still breathing. You carry the spiral now, the hush, the light, the weightless memory of a lantern that never truly needed fire. You carry it not to retell, but to remember. And in remembering, to heal. So sleep now. Let the spiral slow. Let the stars turn in their quiet orbit. Let the elder tree dream. And if, in the dark, you hear a single bell, do not be afraid. You are simply being called back to the silence that remembers you best.